Hi everyone, what we're going to check out here today is some gears, and you'll notice I have three different types of gears right here. I have a 10, 5, and 20 tooth gear. Now again, I'm terrible at math, but this should be pretty easy to be able to figure out. If I wanted a 20 gear, I would need to have 40 set in my subdivisions. If I want this to be 10, I'd have to double that to 20. And what I need to do from there, if we go into this setup, just going to scale this down a bit, and I'm going to grab every other polygon. So we'll go all the way around. Now I'm working 20. If I worked with 21, you're going to have a problem. You're not going to be able to have this go every other. So keep with even numbers, not odd. If I work with this now and I go into my extrude, just pull this out. I can go fancy with this too if I wanted to by making it so it kind of has this sort of a shape applied to it. Now if I want to make this even fancier, I can go into my edge mode. I don't need the middle edges. I also really don't need these. I'm going to leave that alone though. But if I hit bevel and reduce my fraction, I now have what is kind of an okay looking gear here. So we'll use this as an example. So if I wanted this thing to rotate, and you'll see with this example right here, I have my animation going from 1 till 60, and if I hit play, this is rotating around all the way from 1 till 60. That depends on how fast or slow you want that to go. If I wanted to have this apply that same concept, let me make sure that I have my number right here set to 60. So now for the end frame or end time for playback right here, right? So here at 1, we'll hit S to set a key. And then if we go all the way over to 60 in our channel box, we're going to change the rotation, and let's just make sure we have the right one. It should be on the Y, to 360. Now it shouldn't look like it did anything. That's a good sign. So if I hit S, there we go. And if we hit play, it's rotating, but what's the problem? Well, what we see here is that it's rotating, but if we look at our curve editor, so Windows Animation Editors, and if we go into, our graph editor, in my rotate, it's not set to constant. So it's going to start, it's going to ease in and ease out. So if we want to change that so it's more mechanical, bear with me on this zoom, for some reason it's super intense. There we go. What I'm going to do here is just press this button, and now it's going to be solid. Or not solid, but it's going to be straight line. So when we look at this again and we watch this thing loop, now that's set to constant. So this is good. But we're seeing it from 1 to 60. We need to actually only see this from 1 to 59 to make sure that this loop works. And we should see this seamlessly rotate. Looks pretty good. So what if I didn't want to have to copy and paste this thing over and over again, or add, so 360 times maybe like 1,000 to have this rotate 1,000 times on that direction? There's some easy things that we can do inside of our graph editor to allow for us to have this thing infinitely rotate in that direction. To do that, if I have this selected, and again, I don't have to have any of these keys in here. As a matter of fact, you shouldn't. We want to make sure that we keep this as minimal as possible. If I deselect my rotate Y, you're going to notice that there's these nodes in here that just don't need to be there. So we'll hit delete to clean that up. And notice now we just have the rotate Y that's visible. If I select this and go to edit and then go to, view, and have infinity set on, so make sure that that's checked. Then go into pre-infinity and make sure we have cycle. You'll notice that it's cycling, so it's allowing for us to have that animation happen before that animation started. So that was at 0 or 1. So it's going to go there, but at this point, at 60, it stops. So what we need to make sure we have as well added is the post-infinity cycle. So now if we look at our animation, and let's just bump this up, we're going to go up to maybe 1,000. And if I hit play, you're going to see this thing keep on keeping on. So that's really nice. You'll notice I have that set to this one as well. So this is a way that we can have something constantly loop. Now that works really well for things like this, but if you have something where you have changes in the animation, then it's really not going to work. So this is just a solution for kind of repetitive and mechanical objects. So very good to have and be aware of. Now let's look at something else. So let's say that I have this gear and I wanted to add this type of a gear to it as well. If I had this set to rotate from 0 to 60 and it's got 10 teeth on it, if this is 5, it's going to need double that amount because it needs to rotate and cover more area than this does per rotation, right? So if this guy right here, which is the same as that one, from 0 to 60, it rotates all the way around in 60 frames. This thing rotates double that, so it needs to be set to 720. This would be half that, and you can use that formula for whatever type of gear that you're trying to create. Now let's go into a concept with some very basic rigging here. Let's say that I want to use some sort of like a way that a steam engine or locomotive has this piston moving. This is actually a pretty easy thing that we could do. What we'll need to create first is, under our create panel, we want to make a locator. And the locator generally, it's going to start up in the origin, so 0, 0, 0 and X, Y, and Z. So we need to move this over to wherever we want this to be pivoting this piece. So let's say that's where we want this to go. I'm going to put it across the surface here. With that selected, and then I'm going to hold down Shift and then select the actual gear. I'm going to hit P. Now when this rotates around, you notice that this locator goes with it. Locators don't really do anything except for allow for Maya to track the position of something. So it's very helpful for that. It's not going to render in the scene or anything like that. It's just there for us to use for when we need to do something like this. So if I use this thing right here and I want that to act like a piston and to rotate around, well, if we just select that and then select this one, hit P, what we're going to have is it just spinning around like that. And that's not what we want. So we have this locator as sort of our in-between that's going to communicate to this to maintain your position in X, Y, and Z, but rotate around the locator, or to follow that locator's position on this. So let's see if we can get that to work. So if I have this all set up, the next thing is I need to take my locator and I have to go and select my piston, or whatever you want to call this thing. I'm sure I'm naming all sorts of things incorrectly here, but visually it's this thing that's going to move around like over here in our example here. So this thing. So if I want that to follow that, let me make sure I'm at that same position. I need to make sure I'm in my animation. So go to the drop down here, and we are going to go to constrain and open up point. Now we want to make sure maintain offset is on, and if we hit apply, it shouldn't look like anything happened, but if we hit play on our animation now, there we go. So this looks complex, right? But it's very easy things to set up, so that way the eye has some more candy to look at while we have our primary animation going on in the foreground. We can have some very intricate looking gears and clockwork pieces going on in the background. Very, very helpful.